Welcome to Hidden History of Rock and Roll with your host, Tiffany Scott. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Hidden History of Rock and Roll.
Hello and welcome to Hidden History of Rock and Roll. I'm Tiffany Scott, and if you are new to my podcast, I do a deep dive into behind-the-scenes stories of rock's greatest legends, how they came to be, how the records got played, and maybe some dirty secrets if we are lucky. This is your all-access backstage pass. Today, I welcome another rock music legend. He is widely known as one of rock's most tasteful timekeepers and a founding member of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. He is a rock and roll Hall of Fame drummer, singer, songwriter, producer, and he has written songs for Don Henley, Ringo, Toto, the Byrds, Rita Coolidge, Meredith Brooks, Tim McGraw, Eagles, Sister Hazel, Eddie Money, the Mavericks, and The Knack. He's also played on and produced some of the most critically acclaimed and commercially successful records in the industry. He brings those skills to his first band project since Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Beyond producing and playing grooves for his newest band, The Speaker Wars, he lends his guitar, keyboard, bass, and vocal chops to the mix. I am so beyond excited to introduce to the show Stan Lynch. Hello, Stan. It's such an honor to have you on the show.
Howdy, Tiffany. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's so nice to see your face and talk to you. We've known each other since about 1976.
Man, I don't even know. Were you walking?
Yeah, I was walking. I was a fly on the wall. I was just a little thing, but I, was taking it all in. And what a wild time that must have been for you in the whole beginning of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Yeah, I'm trying to put it together. Imagine going over to your pop's place, and you guys, tell me if I'm nuts. You had a pool.
Yep.
And
yep.
I think everybody was just in and out of the pool. That's probably my first memory of seeing you was like flying in and out of there. You know, so. Yeah, that's okay. Good. I haven't lost it completely.
No. And we had the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers stickers on our glass slider doors because people were so, having so much fun that they would walk right into the glass doors. So
sign of the times.
It was a wild time back then. And
yes,
and then
was.
Before we get started into the whole podcast, I just wanted to tell you, my dad loves you so much. And he is so grateful to you for what you wrote in his book. It was so kind of you.
Well, it's heartfelt. I mean, your pop, I'm not kidding. If you're lucky, every band finds a guy that just goes like, I don't know why. I mean, we didn't have a pot to piss in, and he was just went, I get it. And he was like one of those first guys that walks in the room and went like, hey, what do you say?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's anything about John, for me, it's just going to raise a smile. There's things I can't talk about and there's things I won't talk about that we had some fun doing, but it was a really good, John, I'm so glad he's healthy and happy and still involved. And, it's so wonderful to even get the next generational buzz off of you.
Isn't this fun?
Yeah, it is cool. It's quite cool that everybody grows up. I just can't believe I've been around this long. It's amazing.
It's awesome. And time flies. They tell you time flies, but you don't believe it.
And you just wait.
Yeah, I can't even. And then the other thing was, do you have any recollection of that first time meeting my dad at the Whiskey?
I do remember him being there, but I didn't really, it was all a mass chaotic blur at the Whiskey A Go-Go. I mean, to me, I had thought we had already made it because we were playing at the Whiskey A Go-Go.
For sure.
So in my little fevered hick brain, I was already going, oh my God, the Doors played here. The Byrds have played here. I was already like, the Whiskey, I was probably a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
So everything went through me like grease through a goose. I didn't know.
That's a great saying. Like grease through a goose. I love it. So we'll just take start from the beginning. And when did you first realize that you wanted to be a musician, and then more specifically a drummer? Did anyone inspire you?
Well, I was really young, and growing up, we grew up in a small town. There was really only one radio station, and it played music. It didn't play, there wasn't genres yet. It wasn't rock, country, blues. It was music. So I got exposed to music really early, probably by, 6 or 7 years old. Having a radio in my room was just extraordinary adventure. One day I'd get 16 tons. I'd get Frank Sinatra. I'd get Elvis. I'd get the Beatles. I get, you get the Stones. You'd get Johnny Cash, all on this one station. It's AM. And so I knew I was eaten up by music. I didn't even know that you could be a musician yet, but I knew that this was the high place for me. This was the place I was the happiest. If you could just leave me alone with the radio. And, I'd go to sleep with it on, I was supposed to be asleep. It'd be under the covers, and these were radios you had to plug in, these were like old Bakelite, So I think then I knew I could make friends in music, and that never failed me to this day. Music, it passes for my social life. Like even when you're a little boy, it's like, hey, what are you doing? Well, I play guitar. It's like, oh, cool. So I knew I wanted to be a musician because I wasn't going to be a jock. Those were the only two people you could be when you were in school in Florida. You were either a football player or you were a guy with, you had other interests, artistic interests.
Right.
And so I gravitated toward music really early, took a series of lessons and all different kinds of things, washed out in everything. And basically the drums was once Ed Sullivan's show came on. And like most musicians, I was exposed to the Beatles when I was 8 years old. And the next day, every kid was pulling their hair over his ears and wishing that they knew that they had seen something amazing.
Right.
And, but it wasn't like my sister bought into the Beatles huge because she's a little older. And it was like, oh, the girls went, we all know what happened.
Yeah.
When the Stones came on next, and that's when it totally, I threw my life away right then and there. Right. It was like the Rolling Stones, and I couldn't take my eyes off Charlie Watts because he, this might be too technical, but he played traditional, which is a way drummers, there's two schools of drumming. One is matched grip and one is traditional. Ringo was matched, and I had been taking lessons, so I'd learned to play traditional. And once I saw Charlie Watts playing traditional, I went, oh, it's cool. It's actually cool. So I guess Charlie Watts and Mick Avery's from the Kinks and all these, and Mitch Mitchell from Hendrix Experience, they all played traditional, and they gave me kind of license to want to keep playing like that. And but yeah, I was just eaten up with it. I just knew there was nowhere else to go. I mean, that was it.
Yeah.
And plus it kept you from getting your ass kicked by the bullies. Once they figured out that you were actually in the band playing the dance at school, they kind of put a little protection around you.
Oh, that's really
It's
cool.
almost like, yeah, well, he was like, it was more like, up until then it was like, they'd pick on you, and then they realized like, hey, well, Lynch is in a band, and they're playing the Hop tonight, or whatever at the record,
right.
If we want to get in free or if we want to hang, we probably ought to let's
and there'll be girls there.
Yeah, let's don't put a fatwa on Lynch anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it's like so you got a little protection from the tough guys, actually, because and being a drummer was kind of my superpower when I was a little boy. It was the one thing that I could do that probably not everybody could do it. So once I sat behind a drum set, I lost a lot of my inhibition. I could meet people because you just walk in there and go, oh, weren't you the guy playing drums? And it'd be like, yeah, there's an icebreaker,
Yeah.
and it's cool. It was easy to talk to girls because girls saw you actually did something.
Well, you're really cute too. I mean, girls, hello.
Well, no, but you understand. It was more of an intro. It was like if you were a football player, they'd see, weren't you number 23? Didn't
Yes.
you catch that touchdown pass? It's like, weren't you the guy in the, yeah. So it was like playing the drums was a natural step socially, musically, spiritually, cosmically. And I've been really lucky because it's all I've really ever done since I was a little boy. I briefly worked at McDonald's and I briefly worked at Peaches Records on Hollywood Boulevard.
Oh, hell yeah.
I mean, but it was like I have never had to do anything but sit down and make noise. And I've been somehow hand carried and milk fed, and it's worked out beautifully where I'm beyond grateful, and I don't take any of it for granted. And the fact that I'm sitting with you at my age and going, I still get to do this. It's mind-boggling to me.
That's wonderful to hear. And, you are so talented, and that's what's gotten you through is your talent, your drive, your charisma. You have everything. I mean, I knew at a little girl how cute you were. 6 years old, I look up at this really tall guy going, wow, he's so cute. Yeah. I was never really around kids. I was always around adults. So,
and I had no awareness. I was just about any of us, that I was a shy. I was, I had stage fright. I was nervous wreck.
Interesting.
I was desperate, scared. I had nothing else to fall back on. I mean, if music didn't work out, I was going to be living under a bridge, I mean, so it was like, I barely had a high school education and jumped right into this almost as, professionally as a teenager pretty much. And
yeah, it's the fear that drives you sometimes.
I think it's not a bad thing.
No.
I mean, I wouldn't advise it. And I think I gave my central nervous system to Tom Petty the Heartbreakers. I think it's shot as a result of it.
Yeah.
But I think if you have, like I've often said, people used to say, hey, you got any advice for young musicians? And the truth is, if you have something else to fall back on, do it now because you're going to. It's so hard and it takes everything you've got. And there's going to be the most horrible moments of your life, the most humiliating, desperate, literally hungry, cold, all of these things are, and if you ever were thinking, well, I could always be a lawyer, just go ahead.
Yeah.
Just do it. Because I think it was to everyone's credit in the Heartbreakers and Tom that we didn't have a backup plan. There was nothing in place that was going to, All or Nothing doesn't even describe it.
All or Nothing. It's a great song. But it is so true. And I don't know if you remember, but I played the drums when I was young. I don't know if you remember that. And you were the first real pro drummer, even though I was taking lessons classically trained and learning traditional. So when you said that, I totally understood.
Okay. All right.
But you were the first one to teach me on my little drum pad. A lot of things. Man. Whenever you were there, I would break it out and you would teach me stuff. I knew you wouldn't remember because I'm sure you've had a life of just so much stuff going on. But yeah,
I'll wake up at 4 a.m. and remember.
Yeah, right.
It's weird. Like my mind, it's like this big vault of memories, and it's like, I mean, sometimes it opens at the strangest time, like it's like on a time lock, like a bank.
Right.
And it's like. It's weird. Like some days I'll just be walking down a dirt road and I'll just stop in my tracks. And it's like, cause the door hisses and it opens and I go, wow, there's like 8 years of memory I just locked away. Yeah. And it's, but I know it's all there. And so, yes, I'm sure I'll remember at some moment I'll go, right, John Scott's house. Practice pad.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah. It was a great memory for me. And in fact, there's a young drummer out there named Shiva. Umesh, and he and I talk about you all the time, and he loves your drumming and just wants to be just like you, and he is working so hard and really putting his time and effort in. He's really a good guy.
Cool.
And
well, that's
loves
what it
you.
takes. Well, that's really extraordinary, you know, to hear that you've actually connected to people that you never even met. That's that's really nice. I sense that more and more as, the music of the band's been in the musical vernacular, like it's been around so long. So it's, I feel that people have heard, I don't know them. They don't know me.
Right.
But I feel that it's been a good thing. It's not like it's bummed anybody out or driven them to suicide or like, it's a good feeling to have that.
Yeah. You guys were regular guys and you did your thing and you just kept carrying on and, wanting to do what you wanted to do. Mike said you guys never wanted to be famous or make $1 million. You just wanted to do what you wanted to do.
I just was so thrilled to have brothers. I was, it was amazing to have these. I was a little younger than them. Ben and I are close in age, but I was sort of the low man on the totem pole, and the least experienced when we all got together. And I just looked up to those guys for everything. Like how to talk, how to smoke, how to walk. And they would just, I lived for it. Like when we'd get together, I love being on the road because it was a chance to be exposed to guys that knew more than me. And they weren't having that same experience. Look, Tom and Mike had both had younger brothers already, so they didn't need any more. You know what I mean? That was a job they didn't want the gig.
Right.
But I loved that of just being in their sphere of influence. And, it's just, there's a big difference when you're sort of turning 20 and they're in their mid 20s,
Oh, wow.
They're already like, well, and, and they had families and they had lives. And, I was just I was feral, absolutely. I was just, living. I mean, I didn't have a house. I had an apartment. I lived in a hotel when we were at home. They went home.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine what that was like,
Times.
So,
it was different.
We all were feeling, we all had, but the common thing we had was when we were on stage, in rehearsal, on the road, making a record, we all had this myopic vision of where this thing was going to go for probably the first 10 years. There was no question that this is how it goes, and we could speak to each other monosyllabically. We could just go, yep, nope, yep, forget it. It was it was just so easy. It was so easy in a sense to be with them.
That's so great to hear that. And then, you did have a 20-year run with them, and you began producing and writing songs for some really big name artists after that. And, do you want to talk about your time, working as a, writer and producer, and what was that like? I mean, that was a totally different.
It's a different hat. It's exactly like what I'm doing now. I mean, nothing's changed. I got a second act in '94 when my tenure with the band was up, and it was I was really lucky. I'd already been writing. I'd already had a couple cuts, and I'd been been lucky enough to have been invited into some wonderful rooms with really talented guys. But right around then, it was Henley, Don Henley, that basically said, "I'll crack the door for you, and if you can man up, come on in, and so he really presented me with a whole second life, that didn't involve being in a band and playing drums. So that was a really frightening time for me, but having him as a mentor and having him just as a pal. Now we refer back to my earlier conversation. All the music that I've ever been involved in that was worth a crap is all, if you trace it all back, it's all because that was a friend of mine.
Right.
You know, I liked them. They liked me. And doesn't mean they still do. It just means at the time we got along really well. But Don was my friend first, and still is.
Mm-hmm.
And he really saw something in me and saw what I wanted. He could see that this is what you really want. Here's the training ground if you care to do it with me or through me. You know, he's got very distinct parameters that he works with, and he has a very stylized way of working. He's very methodical and disciplined. Not me at all.
Uh-huh. Oh, wow.
You know, but he said, if you're, well, he didn't, I don't know if he ever said it. It was implied. It was implied if you're willing to learn these disciplines, mm-hmm. I'm willing to tolerate you.
That's nice. That's
yes.
Really nice. He took you under his wing. He didn't have to.
No, God, no. Nobody had to do shit for me. I mean, I know that. And I know that these were all invitation-only situations. There's no way you knock on a guy like that's door or an artist's door and go, hey, man, I want to write songs. You know, it's like, first off, security's going to have you in a chokehold and, you know, you'll be out the door. But it's so that's where my second act began, was with him. Mm-hmm. With, you know, under his wing saying, here, work this, do this. I've got something for you to do. And it led to a wonderful run of making music with him, which led to a run of making music with a lot of people in his orbit.
That's insane.
Every artist is a biosphere. They have things that come through their lives. And I got exposed to a lot as a result of him, and got to audit lots of processes. And that's amazing, you know. And it was the same with the Heartbreakers. I got to audit Tom's writing process. I got to audit Jimmy Iovine's production process, mm-hmm. Mike's process, Ben Mont's process, Ron Blair's process, Howie Epstein, Jeff Lynne, you know, Dave Stewart, all these people that came through, you know, even if it wasn't your thing, whatever, I don't know what that, you know, you were privy, if you were smart enough to just suck it, absorb it. And I didn't realize how much I was absorbing, because I was, you know, fairly opinionated when some of these things were happening. And it wasn't until later I went, oh man, I'm really grateful I got to see that, because it's serving me well. I have knowledge. Mm-hmm. It's a tool in the toolbox.
Yeah, you may not have known it in the moment.
No.
Yeah.
And, you know, being privy to, you know, Danny Korchmayer's production and songwriting process. I mean, you got to be kidding me, man. You know what I mean? These guys are, you know, and then, you know, like I said, and Don, oh yeah, they're, you know, they're real. These guys are, they ain't no accidents, mm-hmm. you know?
Yeah, for sure. And as long as you can, you know, look back and then take from it and learn and grow, as we all do, then I think that, you know, you've achieved it right there.
Continuing education mm-hmm. is everything. Mm-hmm. If you ain't learning, you know, I really think that life is about to pass you by. And if you're not vaguely uncomfortable and challenged, you're not probably keeping an open mind enough to learn. If you're rebelling and saying, well, I just don't like it, mm-hmm. that sucks. What you're really saying is, I'm not willing to learn.
Yeah, not open.
You know, because I've done that, man, and I'm guilty of it. I have done, for years I would do that. I go, well, that just sucks. I don't need to do that. I got my thing. And it's like, what I was really saying was, I'm scared. This is going to require that I get an open mind and actually get down and practice and learn. And songwriting and production is very much a read the room adventure.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans are going to really relate to that, what you're saying.
You got to read the room, man. It's like if you're a collaborator, if you're lucky enough to be asked to be a collaborator, you better be able to bring what's not in the room, not just bring your bluster. You know, like you better be willing to listen, learn. And if you're producing, oh man, I think the worst thing you can do is to not listen, and find out what the strengths are in the room, to just be dogmatic and be a prick. I mean, you got nothing, what are you doing? Nobody. So, but yeah, I love the adventure of all of this. I really do.
I love it. I love listening to you, and it's great to hear you say all these things, and you're humble and kind and an incredibly talented musician. But I'm going to take a quick break right now and do a Patreon ad.
If you are enjoying listening to Hidden History of Rock and Roll, please consider becoming a friend of the show on Patreon for only $5 a month. Your support will help deliver more excellent content. Plus, as a member, get your questions answered by the next legendary guest. Thanks for being the best part of Hidden History of Rock and Roll.
So, Stan, how does it feel to be a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, and what was that like for you?
Well, it feels pretty good. I mean, like, what can you say? It was an awkward time. I wasn't in the band anymore, and it had been about 8 years, and my life had gone in another direction. And it was actually Mike that called me and said, we're being inducted, and they want to induct the original guys. And would you be interested in coming to New York? And it was like, sure. So that was it was odd, it was just but it was cool. Okay. It was nice. And I met really nice people there. And I don't know, what was that like? It was exactly like being inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I mean, yeah. It can get better than that, I think.
I guess it was vaguely chaotic for me. Like I said, because it wasn't really my life anymore, but it was lovely to get the acknowledgement. And it was, it had moments. It had moments.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll move on and talk about, I was so excited because I got to see you at the Happy Face Music Festival in Simi Valley, and you performed with Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs. And can you tell the fans what that was like for you performing again and with Mike and singing "Oh, the Stories We Could Tell"?
Well, Mike is such a baked-in part of my life, I mean, I've known Mike since I was probably 17 years old, and played with him then too, even as a little, I would duck in and out of Mudcrutch occasionally. And so, yeah, Mike called me and told me that Matt Logg, his drummer, was taking a break, who's a fantastic drummer, by the way. And Mike asked if I'd want to sub for a few shows. And I really hadn't sat behind the kit in decades. Oh. I mean, literally, my transformation to my new life was complete. And I really didn't even have a modern drum set anymore, So it was funny and then Mike was like, he's so funny. He sent me like 2 or 3 of his albums and a bunch of songs that I guess from the Heartbreakers that I'd never even heard. You know what I mean? I'm like,
oh, wow.
And he goes, here, this is what's in our set. And I'm like, man, I've never learned anybody else's drum part ever. I've only done an impersonation of me. So it was a little odd, but it was a challenge. To me, it felt probably more pressure than I needed it to be. And I remember Mike actually telling me at one point, like, where's all this coming from, this angst or something? And I'm going, well, it's coming from the fact that this isn't my life anymore. I don't have a clue what being, going, ladies and gentlemen, and the lights go down and I'm supposed to play my drums. I don't have I have a memory of it, but no muscle memory of it,
Yeah.
And so it was, but I wouldn't even say it's the downside. That was what I had to overcome. What I got the connection to Mike again.
Oh.
And I got that wonderful, sweet moment to tell him, how much I admire, how much I love him, how much I respect him, and what having him in my life means to me and is meant to me, and that is one of those things you can't put a price on that. That was worth every bit of it, just to be able to look up and see, hey, there's Mike Campbell. He's playing guitar and I'm playing drums. Well, that's cool. I haven't done that in a while.
You're bringing tears to my eyes.
It was very sweet, and it wasn't wasted on me. I'm a tender-hearted fool. So it's so getting to, and the guys in his band were great. Lance Morrison's great. Jason Sinet was great. And this crew, seeing Chinner, these guys that I play, had been, and Jim, all these guys, Jimbo is, they've all been in my life. And so it was, and I realized that their life hasn't had as much variety as mine in terms of careers. Like Mike is basically doing what he's always done. And most of these guys were like, so it was just Tuesday for them.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? For me, I'm going like, wow, I had to retool. I had to go find all these old,
oh, wow.
Literally Matt Logg sending me drum pedals, to try them.
Wow, that's so funny. That is so funny.
He was so sweet because I'm going, man, how am I going to learn all your drum parts? He's going, Mike doesn't care. He just wants you to, you've got room to move. I'm going, thank you.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're not a working drummer, becoming a working drummer it takes a minute, right. And I have a lot of admiration for these guys that's what they do day in and day out.
Right.
Most of my friends are drummers, and I asked for a lot of advice from Kenny Aronoff and Greg Bissonette and these guys. I was on the phone with them going, they're like going, man, you got this. And I'm like, what do you mean? How do you know that? Like,
you called Greg.
Now I know what they mean. Now I know. But at the time I'm going, I write, I produce. What am I doing? I don't do this.
That's funny. I went to school with Glenn Sobel, and Greg Bissonette is my good friend Kathy's brother. And
cool.
So I love Kathy and love Greg. That's awesome.
Oh man, what's not to love?
I know, right?
Yeah. Shame about it is his drum chops.
Yeah.
Oh man, what a joke.
Too bad he's not talented.
Too bad. Yeah. I mean, he wipes the street with 99.9% of every drummer that's ever lived. Oh. And then he's a beautiful human being.
Totally. 100%. Kathy is the same. I just want to eat her up.
Yes. No, the whole family, his dad Bud was that way. His brother, is like, they're all, the Bissonettes they've taught me a lot about joy and kindness and what mirror you hold up to the world. Like Greg is like, even in his darkest times, and I've seen him in some of those, he always can flip the script and find the light and take positive. You to it. Yeah, he did it for me. He's done it for me a couple of times. I've been really down, and Greg's just turned it around for me, man.
That's awesome. That's really awesome to hear. They are great people, and it's awesome. Yeah. So, so switching gears to your speaker wars.
Yes.
You just decided one day you wanted to put together the band. I mean, why now? What was the motivation? Well,
it's not quite like that. It happens. Things happen kind of organically. And once again, refer back to my friendship music equation. I'm in Nashville. This is years and years ago. I'm a staff writer at one of the publishers there. And I meet a guy, John Christopher Davis, who's at another publisher. And we're put together on a blind date, which is how they do it there. It's very puppy mill. Like, you get together with him and let's see if you can get us a purebred puppy. And so John and I, we got together, these two strangers, and we're dancing around the room trying to figure out what we're going to do. And all of a sudden, he just sort of dropped everything and told me what he likes about music and what he wants to do, not what the publishers were looking for. And I'm going, well, damn, dude, I'm right with you. He was everywhere from Merle Haggard, to Bruce Springsteen, to my old band, he was all over the map in this wonderful way that I could relate to.
Right.
We got along famously, and that led to collaborations and more over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And he would come down to Florida and we would write. And I always thought I was just writing for his records because he makes his own records and he's got his own scene. And he was just bugging me during COVID, like a little brother, going like, you ain't got a hair, man, unless you get behind the kit and play this stuff. And I'm like going, oh, dude, I need a band like I need another neck. And he's like, he's going, no, man, it'll be great. I'm like, oh, bands. And so he finally just said, look, well, get your butt on a plane, come to Texas. He goes, I've got great guys. They're wonderful cats. And this is probably during COVID, so 3-4 years ago, maybe.
Right. And
we just started playing together. And one thing led to another. And I went, this is kind of fun. And then we met another guy, Mike Pisturzi, who had a beautiful facility that we could work in. And he just said, hey, I like you knuckleheads. Get in here. And gave us a room a playpen,
Mm-hmm.
And so we could organically create a noise. And I love the way John sings. He's a fun singer. And when you're a drummer, I think I can speak for most drummers, maybe not. But for me, you play for your singer.
Right.
Like if you can't turn your singer on, he can't turn anybody on.
Right.
So you're screwed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're screwed. Like if your singer duds out, it's a dud night. So yeah, it's like so.
So you
your job.
Mm-hmm.
Well, your job as a drummer is to turn your singer on, and John does the same for me. And in the best bands, like in the heyday with TP and the guys, I had a really fun connection to everybody in the band, but with Tom, like he could, if his arm went up, I knew that meant this. And if his butt wiggled that way, I knew it meant this. And if he went, hey ho, I knew that meant this. And
wow.
And it was, we could speak in wild musical semaphore that made for the most wonderful performing because it was high wire, no net, seat of the pants.
Those are the days. Yeah.
Oh, I loved that when rock and roll was not a 3-act play.
Right.
You didn't know what the hell was going to happen. And I loved it. Like Tom would literally, would there be a set list? You could almost see him emotionally shredded within 1 second.
Oh, wow.
It'd be like, well, that's going out the window tonight, boys, because I'm doing this. And it's like, and I love Broken Field Running. I love just the whole panic.
Right.
And I find it very exciting to especially if you know if you know you're pretty good and you know what you're going to do.
Right.
Don't bore anybody. Just get out and go nuts. And that's what John has, that ability. We're just getting started, but I can feel it in him. And and he's younger than me. Of course, everybody is. They're all younger than me. But so they keep me kind of
on your toes,
aggravated. Yeah, kind of like it's a band. So there's always a potential argument and there's potential excitement. I like it.
Yeah.
I must like it.
Younger people do give you a vibrancy. They keep you feeling young and.
Oh man, I can lock myself in my studio and have for years and write songs.
Oh,
very different experience than being in a room with 5 or 6 other guys and they're all screaming and yelling. And it's the cacophony. It's this wonderful free for all when it's working great.
Right.
And I really come alive in those situations.
That's great. And how did you guys settle on the name Speaker Wars?
Well, it's my joke about that is it's the only war I'm going to fight is what's coming out of the speakers.
Right.
You know, I am not going to fight about anything anymore. I don't care. I mean, I literally can let it all go. But where I draw the line is when what's coming out of the speaker sucks, and I know it can be better. That's when I'm a dick.
Right.
And it's like we're gonna have a fight. So the speaker wars was just a sort of a nice way of saying, you know, for me, it's I don't know what I was, but we just thought it sounded cool, and there it is.
It's fun. It is. It's fun and different. And so how did you feel about playing, you know, guitar and keyboard and singing and bass and doing all of that?
It came as necessity at some point in my life, probably early, you know, even during the band when, you know, we all had studios and we were all working. You know, if you wanted to make your demos, you had to figure out how to play all these different instruments. And fortunately for me, I had great role models. I could never play like the guys in the band, but I knew what it sounded like when it was good. You know, like you could always say to your mind, like, does that even sound remotely like Ben Montench? Like, well, then it's probably pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be close to that. But if I'm 1/10 of the way to that, then that's a direction. Same with Mike, you know, same with all the guys, same with Tom's rhythm guitar playing. And, you know, I had really nice patterns. And then over the years, you know, we got to play with Dylan and we got to play with all these other wonderful people. So you started to learn what good sounds like.
Right.
So playing guitar was just, you know, I loved all those other instruments. And I think most drummers should learn to play polytonal instruments. They should learn your job is to support those instruments, not to just make all this noise. You have to be part of that. And, you know, the more you learn the other guy's job, the better you are at your job.
That's so well said. And we're going to take a moment and listen to the single, It Ain't Easy.
Losing half your friends, thought be there to the bitter end. It ain't easy. This growing old, a young man runs when the truth gets told. It ain't easy. Shaking hands with your past. It ain't easy. Learning nothing lasts. It sure ain't easy. Knowing when you've had enough. It's a slap to your face when it's time to give it up. Vision fades, soul remains. Even tread along the way. On the unpaved road, much alone. But when I'm all done, and I take my last breath, you can have what's left. It ain't easy to get a good night's sleep. It ain't easy for an honest man to earn his keep. And it hurts my heart to watch a weak man fade away and never leave his mark and leave this world without a trace. Vision fades, soul remains. Even tread along the way. On the unpaved road, much alone. But when I'm all done, when I take my last breath, ooh, you can have what's left. You can As the years move on, it ain't easy. Letting go or holding on, it sure ain't easy. But you'll always be walking the line between one and me. 'Cause vision fades, soul remains. Made a damn good trade along the way. Off the unpaved road, much unknown. When it's said and done, I lay down to rest. The life I loved has no regrets. 'Cause I know I had the best. You can have what's left. You can have what's left.
I love that song. I love that song, Stan. You sound great. Everybody sounds great. And if I dare say, it does remind me of a mix of Don Henley, Ben Montench, and Tom Petty. I mean, it's fantastic.
I've never been so insulted in my life.
Dare I say, dare.
I mean, wow. It's none of it is intentional because I don't know. I've never been good enough to be that, to say, oh man, I'm going to do this. But, you marinate your whole life in these other people's music and you're involved in it. It's natural for you to go, well, that's what good is. When you hear it coming out of the speaker, you go, I don't know what it's reminiscent of or anything, but I just know that's probably not bad if it reminds me of where I've been in my life.
Right.
But it's not, none of this is planned and intentional. I don't have the capacity.
Well, it's good.
Musically or any. Well, thank you. That's very kind. I'm glad you'll like it.
I do. And I've asked other artists and producers on the show this question, but how do you know when you're done with the song or done with the album? I mean, because to me, it feels like as a creator, you could just keep going and going.
Well, what is it? I forget who said, art is never finished. It's just abandoned.
Right.
So, I mean, with John and I, we had lots of songs, and we do have lots and lots of songs, more than we're probably ever going to need. And I lose track of objectivity. I have no sense of it. So we we were lucky enough to meet a guy named Mike Basterzi, who helped us with the assembly of the first record. He was objective. He wasn't burned out on any of the songs. And he said, look, if it were me and I'm making a first record, I'd just put these on a record because they're all over the map. They're all different kinds of songs. There's country, there's this. He goes, and he really did the assembly of the first batch. And I had to let go because, I mean, I'd still be going like, well, there's one more we're writing. It's really good. And I just hope that we get enough traction where we can keep making more records because there's so much more juice in the grape,
Yeah.
There's so much more in the tank. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it never stops. I mean, I really do believe that the best song I'm going to be involved in is the one that I'm going to do tomorrow,
Yeah.
I really think that. I'm so stupid. I'm like, oh man, tomorrow's going to be the one, you know.
It's
know,
good to have those in the tank, you know, and you can just
I
keep
love
going.
it.
Yeah.
I never walk into the studio thinking it's going to suck. You know, I always walk in going like, this is going to be fun, man.
Yeah.
And I look at an old guitar and I restring something or pick up an old instrument or an auto harp or something. And I go, man, let's go. You know, let's just, I'm learning to not edit as much as just do.
Yeah.
And then you can always edit. You can edit later. That's sort of easier to me than creating.
Yeah, and there is really no roadmap anymore, or there's no stamp. Like we don't realize, I think, that we can do anything we want and choose to do. And if people love it, they'll love it. If they don't, well, they don't. But like you said, you can do a country song, you can do a rock song, you can do anything you want. There is no set in stone.
Well, Buddy Rich said there's only two kinds of music, good and bad.
That's awesome. So just after being, a major contributor in Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and then writing and producing for other artists, as we've touched on, how does it feel to have something that is now just solely yours?
Well, it feels great to be involved in something. I won't say it's solely, because it takes a real village to get a band together, and I wanted a band. I could make a quote solo record, and I considered it, but I also thought there's not as much fun in it, and I like the guys having skin in the game, and I like everybody being involved. So it's not solely mine, but it feels really good to walk. Like, we went and played a gig, and it was a new experience for me, walking out on a stage and playing my drums with guys. And these were all songs that came from my experiences. They were all songs that I had lived those.
Right.
It wasn't not that I didn't feel like I lived the songs that Tom wrote, because I felt very connected to them, but I also knew that those were his stories.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those were his storytelling, and I was privy to help make those records work. But this is a little different experience, and it's coming in a nice time in my life where I feel like, I got a lot of patina on me. There's I have some wear, and it's nice to be able to be unguarded. And this is what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you sing some of these songs, they ring really true to me right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Something that's really, you feel just so near to your heart, and, you're being so creative, and it sounds like you.
Well, you're at a certain point, you kind of have to take real stock of who you are and what you are. And it's nice when you do that, and it's not too bad. You don't feel bad about it.
No, it sounds great.
But there's not an overwhelming, I'm not prideful and boastful. I'm more like, I would love to share.
Yeah.
It's like, I've always said that. It's like, I don't want to show off. I want to share. And it would be really nice if there were enough people that cared. That'd be great. I would love that too.
There are. And your album does come out May 30th in 2025. And do you all have plans to tour?
Well, yeah, but I think what we have to be realistic about is, if we can get enough traction that we represent an interest to either another artist that would like to take us out with them, or we have enough of an audience that will come. So it's a very different marketplace than when your Pop and I were meeting.
Totally.
Like, John knew how to promote, and he knew how to take us to KSAN in San Francisco and Boston, and he knew where our markets were, and he knew to put us on the air. My phone would ring at 4 a.m, and John would be like, get your ass to Drive Time radio station. He goes like, you're the only guy that I can wake up at 7 today. I'm going like, you bastard. And it was like, but he's like, you're going to be on the radio this morning talking break now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and they're going to play it because you're there.
Right.
And they're going to be pissed that Tom's not there, but they're still going to take it. You know, it's like, so that's a different world.
Right.
I mean, terrestrial radio, hey, look, now this is a conversation where I'm going to get in big trouble because it's the music business. I love the music.
There you
The
go.
business, I don't know jack about how it works today. All I know is that if, as Tom used to say, Stan, take care of the music, it'll take care of you. And that was wonderful advice.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that there's, we have a label involved, we have a really good manager, that perhaps we can figure out a way to cut through the chatter of the 70,000 songs that are released a day.
Right.
And show ourselves to be sincere and hardworking and legit. And we are ready. If somebody called muster on us, all we need is about a 10-minute lead time and we could get out and play because the band's good. So
for sure. Maybe Don will call you. He'll want a tour.
I think they're doing okay at the Sphere right now. I don't think they need any help.
Get in on that action. I mean, come on. I'm ready to go to the Sphere.
I think they got that one pretty well dialed in.
Well, I'm not sure if you're aware or if you are on social media at all, but some of the Tom Petty fans, they have started a Facebook group dedicated to all things Speaker Wars. And it was started by Teddy Swift and Carol Shapiro. I proposed some questions on there and got a ton of questions, and I could only pick a few. So if you're ready, we can do some fan questions.
First off, yeah, you got to know I still carry a flip phone. So look, I'll prove it to you. Here, look.
Oh,
I'm not
my
kidding.
God. Is that Motorola?
I know. I know. So
come on.
So I mean, literally. So yeah, I'm not a big social media guy. I'm so touched. People do send me screenshots of things, and they'll go, "Hey, man, somebody said something nice about you."
Oh.
It's like that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's so cool. So yeah, hit me.
Okay,
go ahead, I'll try.
All right. So we'll start with Carol Shapiro, founder of the Speaker Wars. She's from West Bloomfield Township, Michigan. She asks, what is your favorite venue you have ever played?
Well, first, thanks, Carol, for putting this together. And, obviously I'm really touched that you would go out of your way to put together a site for us. That's really cool. Thank you.
Very awesome.
Favorite venue? I don't know. I remember thinking the US Festival was pretty cool.
Oh, hell yeah.
It wasn't really a venue, but it was like, it was the first gig we ever did with Howie Epstein.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, this is trial by fire for this guy.
Yeah.
And he was super cool. I remember he didn't even miss him, like we're riding a elevator 6 floors up to get to the gig and you got to take a helicopter to get there. And
oh my God.
Little Howie's. And I'm thinking, like, of course I'm winding him up because that's what I do. Like, hey, Howie, don't be nervous. Like, yeah, I hope you're not, there's a couple 100,000 people. I remember that we walked out, we played, and we were good. And Howie was great. He's, I remember after the first song, he walks over to me in the dark. And I thought, well, he's going to be crapping his pants or something, And he looks over at me and he goes, "Hey, Lynch," he goes, "You call that drumming?"
He messed with you.
I remember thinking, like, I love this guy.
Love him.
I love everything about Howie Epstein.
Right.
He wore his life like a pair of comfortable jeans, man. He just,
that's awesome.
It looked so easy. And so I remember that gig, and you kind of remember that, like, you mentioned the Whiskey A Go-Go. I loved those early gigs when we had so much to prove, and we were like the opening act.
Mm-hmm.
I loved walking out knowing that we were going to kick some ass, but we're opening for Meatloaf.
Oh, hell yeah.
I love knowing that, like, they're not going to forget
right
this band, And I love the first gigs, all those theaters we played early.
Mm-hmm.
Those once it got to the arenas and all that, it was a bit like a show.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was like you were putting on a show. But when you're in the theaters, it's very, you got eye contact, man. People are screaming and they're yelling at you and they're yelling requests and they're throwing cigarettes and booze and it's like they want you to have fun.
Yeah.
You're part of a,
Intimate.
And I was the same age. I was the same age as the audience. You know what I mean?
Wow.
I'm 21. They're 21.
Yeah.
So it's like, and there's, literally there would be moments early in the tours where I look down and I think, what are they looking at? like I'm and I would be just as freaked out. Like, I'm going like, wow, that is Mike Campbell. He's playing the shit out of American Girl. Like, of course, I was as excited to be there as everybody was. So that was my memory of the early days. Were very, I don't know, it was just so innocent.
Surreal, yeah.
It really was. It was so surreal because the last thing I remember, I had $100 in a Volkswagen bus,
right.
And then it's all, the conveyor belt just explodes to Mars and you're just hanging on with every ounce you got.
Yeah. Mike and I talked about that a little bit. How it was, you guys were just playing these small places, and then all of a sudden it just blew up. And here I'm a little older at the Forum and it's packed. What's 3 nights? I think you guys played the Forum and it was like everybody was singing your songs and I was just bawling the entire time. It was magical for me,
it was
feeling that feeling.
Yeah, that was probably similar for me. There were times I was overwhelmed with like, is this really happening or am I dreaming this? Like, did I just, that was part of that Speaker Wars song, that Every Lie Come True. I remember saying that to John one day. I remember going like, everything all my crap that I told everybody in school, all the BS, all the lies, I could check almost every one of them now.
Wow.
Like, I'm going to have this, I'm going to have that, we're going to do this, we're going to do. And it was like, I remember saying to him, I said, every lie has come true. And he goes, oh, let's write that. So it was like, literally, that's my life has just been, I'm not saying there hasn't been some pretty bizarre stuff that came with it. It doesn't come a la carte.
Sure.
Success doesn't come only like, I just want the good part.
Right.
You get all of it, man. And
crazy.
it's a freak. Yeah, it's pretty freaky. Anyway, next question.
Next question is from Janet Massa Lovell from Denver, Colorado. She's a big fan and wants to say, do you know how happy you have made everyone by playing at the Tom Petty weekend? And what was that like for you?
Well, I know it made me happy. It's very easy to tell you what it did for me. It created a certain closure. And I'd never been invited to one of them. So it was nice to be invited and then have a band. And we played some of our old songs. And I think I didn't want to take many chances with those charts. I liked the way those records sounded. So we did our version, we did what we thought was the closest we could stick to it. I'm pretty reverent about those records, and those, and I liked that. And I liked that we were accepted. We played 13 songs nobody had ever heard and nobody screamed Freebird and walked out. And so I was really appreciative of the audience and they couldn't have been kinder to us.
That's wonderful.
So what was it like for me? It was great. And I'm playing an old drum set that's from 1966
Get out.
that, I've had for 1,000 years, and I'm playing it in Gainesville, and I'm thinking to myself, boy, that's a full circle, to be playing these old drums in this town that it was a very nice. And then you're kind of struck with the whole, like, how did a half a century get by me?
Right. Right. Yeah. And you don't want to look at the down part of it. You want to just look at the up part of it and, just say how grateful you are to be there. But,
to be alive and healthy.
And celebrating.
And being, like I said, nobody, I mean, if there were haters, I must have missed them because everybody was nice.
Ah, that's awesome.
Really?
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Jane McKinnon from Sacramento, California, she says, I would like to know, do you have any funny stories from being on the road in the early days with Tom and the band?
I think I already hit those, didn't I?
I think you did. I mean, anything, that you can talk about salacious, I don't know.
Well, I'm thinking, salacious then is not salacious now. The world is, we hit a tawdry curve, in the last decade that's like, was unknown. I was probably, I was young. Mm-hmm. I was a boy. Mm-hmm. I was single. I was having the time of my life. Mm-hmm. I never discouraged a generous impulse from anyone. Right. That's the kindest way I can say it. Right. If somebody felt that they wanted to hang out with me, I probably was. Sure. I think the guys probably recognized in me that was probably not a great thing. I remember at one point Tom saying, like, or I think he might have said it to one of the crew, like, you need keep an eye on Stan.
Okay. You were having a good time.
He's liable to wander off.
Ah.
Stan can wander. And I remember, like, there was a leash put on me at one point, sort of like he probably shouldn't be driving as much, and he should probably, like, I was having a hell of a good time. I mean, I don't think I overstepped any boundaries. Mm-hmm. I just think I was really in the moment,
enjoying it.
Oh my God. I mean, I sort of look back at it. Nothing. I wouldn't do anything different. Mm-hmm. I would just probably have kept my mouth a little. Maybe I would have been a little quieter about things. Mm-hmm. I demanded a lot of attention back then, and I don't know where that came from, mm-hmm. but I could see where that probably wore people out.
Okay.
But I think that the guys were so fun in the old days. Everybody really wanted to be there. Mm-hmm. You could put us all on a 16-hour coach flight, mm-hmm. and no food. We didn't care. It was like we'd pile off the plane, go straight onto a stage, and kick ass. And it was the most wonderful feeling to be part of that mm-hmm. gang.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It was a wonderful time. I'll move on to the next one. Jamie Lee Trainer from Mount Wolf, Pennsylvania. She asks, who was your favorite artist to work with outside of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers?
Well, I'd say the most... I'd say, Don, Henley would be my favorite, just because he allowed me to learn so much and allowed me to make so many mistakes without being judgmental. Like he's a very curious person, mm-hmm. and will let you go. Like he'll let you go. Like he just, hey man, if you want to find out what's going to happen, if we put a 60-piece string date on this, let's go find out. Like, and it's not like if it falls flat, it's not like you get chastised and browbeaten. It just means like, well, probably ought we probably shouldn't have done that. And right. It's like, so with Don, I had this incredible ability to just, the sky was the limit, like you could say, literally, what would it be like to put Stevie Wonder on the song? And it'd be like, well, he'll be here tomorrow.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It's like, so it's that's, and being to work with these amazing drummers, because, well, Don's an amazing drummer, but neither of us really particularly wanted to play drums, so we would say, who do you want to get? And I got exposed to these amazing drummers. Don would say, well, Jeff Piccaro's coming in, or, or Vinnie Colaiuta's coming in, and it'd be like, oh, wow. So, I would say that never have I been on my toes like with another artist like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that I'm so grateful because Don's hard on himself. So he's hard on everybody around him because he wants the best out of you. And I took that the right way.
Good.
I never took that as like, I'm getting my ass kicked. I took it as like, you got better juice, man. You can do better. And I'll take that anytime from somebody I respect. And so, yeah, that's the high watermark.
That's awesome.
Beyond Tom,
Well, I feel like we've touched on so much today, and we got to listen to your song, and we've got to hear how kind and humble and just beyond incredibly kind you are. I know I just said kind twice, but you are incredibly kind. So thank you so much for joining me today, Stan. It was an honor talking to you. I'm so excited for your new band and the new album. I wish you so much success, and I hope to get to see you in concert soon. Wink, wink.
Yeah. Oh, hey, look. I would love that. I'm very grateful to you for having me on, and all your listeners. Hey, if you like it, let a friend know. Write your congressman. Get us out there on the road.
Thank you so much, Stan.
We hope you enjoyed the latest installment of the Hidden History of Rock and Roll. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on all the podcast platforms. Thanks for listening to the Hidden History of Rock and Roll with your host, Tiffany Scott.